In the world of pro wrestling, there are stars, there are legends, and then there are immortals who change the industry forever. From the all-American hero who ushered in the golden era of WWF to the villainous leader of the NWO, this is the story of a hero who got consumed by ego and poisoned by power. A story of a man who saved wrestling and also nearly destroyed it. This is the story of a legend who built an empire, only to see it consumed by the flames of controversy. This is the story of Hulk Hogan. It's 1982, and the world of pro wrestling looks much different from what it is today. Instead of a global entertainment empire, you have regional territories scattered across America. One man had a crazy idea to tear down those walls and create a national wrestling company that would revolutionize sports entertainment forever. But in order to do so, he needed a centerpiece, a larger-than-life superhero that fans could rally behind, an icon that could transcend wrestling and become a household name across America. Enter Hulk Hogan. Before signing with the WWF, Hogan had already made a name for himself in the Southern Territories and also capturing gold in New Japan as the first IWGP champion. But it was his mainstream appearance in Rocky III as Thunderlips that caught McMahon's attention and showed his crossover potential. When Hogan returned to the WWF in December 1983, everything changed. The world witnessed the birth of an all-American hero draped in red and yellow, preaching his 3 commandments of training hard, saying your prayers, and eating your vitamins. On January 23, 1984, at Madison Square Garden, Hogan defeated the Iron Sheik for the WWF Championship, and Hulkamania was born. And what a phenomenon it was. Hogan's 1,474-day championship reign became the longest of the Golden Era. He headlined the inaugural WrestleMania alongside Mr. T, turning wrestling into mainstream entertainment. WrestleMania 3 saw him body slam Andre the Giant in front of 93,000 screaming fans in a moment that'll forever be iconic. But Hogan's influence extended far beyond the ring. Hogan appeared on talk shows, graced magazine covers, and starred in his own Saturday morning cartoon. He wasn't just wrestling's biggest star. He was a mainstream celebrity who brought millions of casual fans into the world of pro wrestling. Behind the scenes, however, Hogan was learning the power of backstage influence. His creative control and political savvy ensured he remained on top, sometimes at the expense of other talented performers who never got their shot at the main event spotlight. The most infamous example of this came at WrestleMania 9, when Hogan forced himself into an impromptu main event and used his backstage influence to win the WWF Championship. But despite of Hogan's backstage politics, by the early 1990s, the red and yellow formula was growing stale. Fans were changing, wanting more realistic, edgier content. Hogan's squeaky clean character felt outdated in an increasingly cynical world. A new generation of stars took over WWF's main event scene. After his controversial departure from the WWF in 1993, many thought the Hulk Hogan era was over. They were wrong. Hogan was about to reinvent himself in a way that nobody saw coming, and in doing so, would help create one of the most revolutionary storylines in wrestling history. By 1994, Hulk Hogan was a man desperately searching for relevance. His WWF departure had been messy, his Thunder in Paradise TV show was flopping, and wrestling had moved on without him. When Ted Turner's WCW came calling with a massive contract, Hogan saw his chance at redemption. Initially, WCW tried to recapture the old magic. Hogan won the WCW World Championship in his debut match, sporting the familiar red and yellow, but the fans weren't buying it anymore. The Hulkamania routine felt stale. Something had to change, and something did change on July 7, 1996, at WCW Bash at the Beach. In what would become wrestling's most shocking heel turn, Hogan revealed himself as the mysterious third man joining Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. As garbage rained down from the disgusted crowd and angry fans jumped the guardrail, the NWO was born and wrestling would never be the same. The NWO saw Hogan turn into Hollywood Hogan, complete with a dyed black beard, all-black attire, and a narcissistic persona that perfectly captured the anti-hero character of the late 90s. This wasn't your childhood hero anymore. This was wrestling's biggest villain, and fans couldn't look away. The transformation revitalized Hogan's career and helped WCW compete head-to-head with the WWF during the Monday Night Wars. The NWO became the hottest angle in wrestling, with Hogan as its leader generating unprecedented heat and ratings. But behind the scenes, Hogan's influence was becoming problematic once again. His contract included a creative control clause that gave him power over his character's direction. This power would repeatedly cause issues for WCW's booking. The most infamous example came at Halloween Havoc 1999. Scheduled to face Sting for the WCW Championship, Hogan instead came to the ring in street clothes, laid down for Sting, and walked out. The bizarre incident was reportedly due to Hogan's refusal to follow the planned storyline, exercising his creative control in the most public way possible. Even more controversial was the Bash at the Beach 2000 incident with Vince Russo. When Russo wanted Hogan to put over Jeff Jarrett for the championship, Hogan again used his creative control. The situation devolved into a worked shoot where Jarrett laid down for Hogan, only for Russo to return and cut a scathing promo calling out Hogan and exposing his backstage politicking to the whole world. The creative control clause that was meant to protect Hogan's character ultimately became a weapon he wielded to maintain his spot at the top, regardless of business sense or fan reaction. WCW's booking became increasingly chaotic as storylines had to work around Hogan's demands rather than following logical progression. By 2000, the magic was gone, and so was Hogan, leaving WCW in shambles. But the wrestling world wasn't done with Hulk Hogan yet. When Vince McMahon acquired WCW, he had one more nostalgia run planned for his biggest star, a run that would reveal just how deep Hogan's backstage influence truly went. When the WWF purchased WCW in 2001, Vince McMahon had a golden opportunity for the ultimate revenge storyline. In February 2002, Hogan returned alongside Scott Hall and Kevin Nash as the reformed NWO, ready to poison the company that had beaten them. But something unexpected happened at WrestleMania 18. Facing The Rock in what was supposed to be a typical good versus evil match, the crowd erupted for the villainous Hogan like it was 1987 all over again. The nostalgia was overwhelming, and WWE quickly pivoted, turning Hogan face and giving him one final championship run. However, even during this feel-good return, Hogan's backstage politics surfaced. Reports emerged that he had influenced the finish of his match with The Rock, ensuring he looked strong in defeat. His subsequent reign, while brief, raised eyebrows as younger stars were passed over for the aging icon. After losing the title to The Undertaker, Hogan's relationship with WWE soured over creative differences. The bizarre Mr. America storyline followed, a poorly conceived angle where Hogan, despite being fired by Vince McMahon, returned under a mask claiming to be a different person entirely. The storyline was universally panned, and Hogan quietly left WWE in 2003, frustrated with his reduced role and payoffs. His third WWE return in 2005 brought more controversy. During his feud with Shawn Michaels, tensions exploded behind the scenes. Michaels, frustrated with Hogan's refusal to put him over in their planned series of matches, decided to make a statement at SummerSlam 2005. In one of wrestling's most unprofessional displays, Michaels oversold every single move, turning their match into a mockery as he flopped around the ring like a fish. By 2009, Hogan's options were running thin. WWE had moved on without him. His ventures outside wrestling flopped, and his reputation for backstage politics preceded him everywhere. But one company was desperate enough to take a chance on the aging legend, a decision that would nearly destroy them from within. By 2009, TNA Wrestling was struggling to compete with WWE's dominance. When Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff arrived in January 2010, it seemed like a coup for the smaller promotion. Everyone thought this would take TNA to the next level. Instead, the decision turned into a nightmare. Hogan immediately began reshaping TNA in his image, bringing in aging stars from the Monday Night Wars era while pushing homegrown talent to the background. The company that had prided itself on showcasing fresh faces like AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, and Christopher Daniels suddenly became obsessed with recreating past glories. The Immortal storyline epitomized everything wrong with Hogan's TNA run. In a shocking heel turn at Bound for Glory 2010, Hogan revealed himself as the leader of a new faction designed to control TNA. But unlike the organic excitement of the NWO, Immortal felt forced and convoluted. Fans weren't shocked. They were just frustrated. Hogan's backstage influence in TNA made his WCW politicking look tame by comparison. Working alongside Dixie Carter, he essentially gained creative control over the entire company. Storylines became increasingly nonsensical as they revolved around Hogan's vision rather than logical booking or fan interest. The pattern from WCW repeated itself with devastating consequences. Talented wrestlers like Samoa Joe saw their momentum killed, while AJ Styles, arguably TNA's biggest homegrown star, was relegated to secondary storylines. The company's unique identity was stripped away, replaced by recycled WCW concepts that felt decades out of date. The Aces and Eights storyline became the perfect metaphor for Hogan's TNA tenure, a promising concept that devolved into overbooked nonsense, climaxing with Hogan's daughter Brooke marrying Bully Ray. TNA's ratings declined, talent started quitting the company, and the promotion never recovered from the Hogan era. By 2013, even TNA had had enough. Hogan's contract expired, and for the first time in decades, he found himself without a wrestling home. But Hogan's troubles were just beginning, because the controversies that would define his legacy were about to explode into public view. For decades, Hulk Hogan had survived every controversy, every backstage political battle, every creative disaster. His legend seemed untouchable, until 2015, when his carefully constructed image came crashing down in the most devastating way possible. The bombshell dropped when the National Enquirer published excerpts from a leaked private tape featuring Hogan. But it wasn't the affair in the tape itself that destroyed Hogan's legacy, it was what he said on that tape. In shocking audio recordings, Hogan was heard using racial slurs repeatedly, expressing disgust at his daughter dating a black man and admitting to being a racist to a point. WWE immediately terminated his contract, erased him from their website, and removed him from the Hall of Fame. His merchandise disappeared from stores, video games were pulled from shelves, and decades of goodwill evaporated overnight. The hero of millions of children, the symbol of American values, had been exposed as harboring the very hatred that wrestling had worked to overcome. Fellow wrestlers who had worked with Hogan for years gave Hogan the benefit of the doubt, while others, like Mark Henry, expressed shock and disgust at his comments. Hogan's attempts at redemption fell flat. His apologies seemed hollow and inadequate. Even when WWE quietly reinstated him in 2018, the damage was irreparable. The cheers that once greeted his appearances were replaced by uncomfortable silence or outright boos. On July 24, 2025, Hulk Hogan passed away at age 71 from cardiac arrest. His death marked the end of one of wrestling's most complicated legacies. Hulk Hogan changed professional wrestling forever. There's no denying that. He helped transform it from regional entertainment into a global phenomenon. But his story serves as a cautionary tale about unchecked power and the danger of believing your own hype. Hulk Hogan was wrestling's biggest star, and perhaps its most tragic fall from grace.